Hey, Motorman here. I've had a lot of requests lately to do a road test on the 2020 Road King Standard. Now what you're looking at here is my 2019 Road King police bike, and it is exactly the same as the 2020. No changes between 19 and 20. There are some differences with the police version of the Road King versus the Standard. I'm going to go over those differences for you, but it's pretty much the same motorcycle. It's not a world of difference. Now I have added some things onto this bike. As you can see here, I've got custom dynamics LEDs here as well. Lights up the back of the motorcycle really well, flashes the brake lights, and I believe in having as much stand out for people to see you as possible. Now quickly I'll go over just a couple of minor things that are different on the police version. For instance, right here, this is all blacked out. On the civilian version it would be chrome. Oddly, on the Road King Special it's also blacked out, and they charge you more for the blacked out part of it. The wheels and tires are slightly different. That's a 17 front wheel on this bike and a 16 rear wheel. On the civilian version it's 18 in the back and 17 in the front. And the main difference here with the police bike is the 114 motor comes standard. Both the police version and the civilian version comes standard in 2020 with ABS. The RDRS system is optional. It's a $995 option. On the police bike in 2020, the RDRS, which if you're not familiar is basically cornering ABS as well as traction control, that comes standard on the police version. I've also added, by the way, these Baker wings here. That's to keep the wind from coming up underneath and really causing helmet buffeting. They do work very well. I put them on mainly because when I'm riding and doing the videos and talking, I want as little wind as possible coming up from underneath, because, well, people on YouTube complain if there's too much wind noise. But I'm gonna, since I've ridden this bike now about 1,500 miles, I certainly feel qualified to tell you everything about it. And in addition, I'm going to tell you, give you a little review on a new helmet that I purchased. And here it is right here. This is the Built 2.0. It comes with Cena, and I got one of these for myself and one for my wife so that we could communicate while we're riding. And yes, at some point you're gonna hear my wife and I do a video together, and you'll get to hear well, everything she says basically. These helmets run about $229, and the Cena system works very well. What I don't like about this helmet is it is extremely noisy. Now I don't expect total silence from a helmet under $500 range, but this is like 3 times as loud as my $90 HJC full face helmet. And I think it has to do with these vents. It is vented pretty well, and I've tried when I'm recording to cover all the vents on this with tape, and of course that caused the flip up here to completely fog up, so that didn't work. So I just have to, if you're gonna go for a long ride on a motorcycle with a Built helmet, you better be wearing earplugs, because it will get annoying after a while. I'll show you the bottom of it. It is also quite confining. I have this piece here, and I had to buy 2 sizes larger than I normally wear. Normally wear a medium. This is an extra large because they are cut kind of small, so be aware of that. Like I said, for about 230 bucks, it works pretty well as far as the communications. The helmet itself, not so much. Anyway, we're going to take the Road King out, and I'll ride it and tell you all about it. Alright, so here we go. One of the benefits of a Road King over the Street Glide or the Electric Glide is that I believe it's a more versatile motorcycle. If you want to add a fairing to it, there's all kinds of aftermarket fairings you can add. In fact, I thought about doing that on this bike. I had a Memphis Shades Batwing fairing on another Road King that I had. It worked very well. I got the one without a radio mount because radios really don't turn me on either way. And with this built helmet with the Cena device on it, I can hook my phone to it and play any music that I want, or get phone calls even, or listen to talk radio, whatever I want to do. You could do it, and you don't have to worry about the complications that are added to a motorcycle when you're adding the radio that you find on the Electric Glides, etc. In addition, I think the Road King is about the best handling, most nimble Harley-Davidson. In fact, I go so far as to say the Road King is the most nimble, easiest to handle heavyweight motorcycle in the world. That's due to the short by heavyweight cruiser standards, short wheelbase, 64 inches, 26-degree rake. It is extremely maneuverable. I think the handlebars also turn just a tiny bit further from lock to lock than they do on the faired bikes, and I'm not positive about that, but it sure feels that way. It could also be because it's a little bit lighter. Now, according to Harley specs, the Road King only weighs 1 pound less than the Street Glide. Now, I think that's a mistake, because let's face it, the fairing and the radio and the amplifier and everything built into that fairing, I'm guessing there's got to be 40 to 50 pounds more weight over the front wheel than you'd have on a Road King. Now, like I said, maneuverability, all the Harleys are very good, but this bike especially, I mean, you turn this motorcycle is a dream. There's nothing to it. I don't know if they still do, but they used to have a separate class in the police rodeos, police competitions, for the Electric Glide and the Road King. And I guess because the Road King handles just a little bit easier, a little bit better than the faired bikes. Now the ride on this bike, I wouldn't call it plush, but it rides real nice. You've got full-size shocks on the back. That means 3 inches of travel. On the Street Glide, you've only got 2 inches, and believe me, that 1 inch of travel makes a difference. Also, on the Street Glides, or even the Road King Special, when you reduce the rear by 1 inch, you're losing some ground clearance, and it takes the lean angle from 32 degrees down to, I believe it's 30 degrees on both the Street Glide and the Road King Special. They both have the lower shock in the back. And again, with differences between the standard Road King and the Road King Police, the tire or wheel size, like I said, is 17 in the front on this bike and 16 in the rear. On the Sevilla version, you've got a 19 in the front and an 18 in the rear. And the distance from the top of the tires to the bottom of the tire is the same, but because you've got a lower profile tire, there'll be a slight difference in ride comfort. The smaller side wheel, the smaller it is, of course, the stiffer the ride's going to be. I don't think it's a world of difference, but there is some difference to it. But lately that's been the fashion with cruisers, is to have low profile tires, so Harley obliged them. Now the 107 motor that comes with the Road King standard is more than adequate. It's got plenty of power and torque. It's very smooth motor. In fact, this bike, I take it, you know, on a 500-mile ride in one day, no problem at all. There's virtually no vibration that gets through to the floorboards or the grips. And yeah, you could tell that you're on a V-twin motorcycle, but it's so smooth. It's really amazing. Now, between the 2013 bikes and the 2014, when they came out with the Rushmore, they had more power, more torque, and they were smoother than the 2013's earlier bikes. But between 2014 and 2017, when they came out with the M8 motor, the Milwaukee 8, there's that much more difference. There's virtually no vibration. The bike isn't hopping around at idle. It's just as smooth as could be. Now with the 114 motor, you're going to have, I think Harley claims, 10% more torque. They don't say how much more horsepower, but from what I've seen with dyno results, I believe these are averaging about 83 or 84 horsepower versus 78 for the 107. So it's not a world of difference, but there is some difference. It'll be mainly felt if you load up the saddlebags with luggage and have two riders on here. Then you're going to feel the difference in passing power. And I guess going up hills in the mountains. Of course, we don't have any mountains here in Florida, so I can't say for sure, but I'm guessing that's where the main difference is. If you got on this bike with the 114 and got on the civilian version with the 107, you're not going to say, oh, that's night and day difference. It's a little bit of difference. 10% seat of the pants, you're probably not going to feel that. This bike, by the way, also has aftermarket exhaust. These are Tab performance mufflers. These are the 3.5-inch mufflers with the medium baffles. I didn't have to tune the bike or change anything with the motor or to put those on, because on the touring bikes you have the catalytic converters in the head pipe, so that's still there, giving the bike plenty of back pressure. And it does the Tab performance mufflers are louder. They sound better than stock, but they don't get on your nerves when you're cruising. In fact, you can only tell the difference actually when you throttle it. When I hit the throttle, then you can hear that the pipes are definitely louder than the stock pipes. It's a nice bassy rumble. I like them very much. In fact, I highly recommend them. tabperformance.com. You can tell the Motorman sent you. I believe they give you a few bucks off if you do that. Handling on this bike for winding roads on a cruiser, 32-degree lean angle. That means you could lean it over 32 degrees before soft parts start touching the ground. On the left side, you hear the tip of the kickstand. That's what's going to hit first. On the right side, it'll be the floorboard. And you could go a little bit more. I don't suggest doing that out on the street, because if you're coming around a curve at 50 miles an hour, you're scraping the boards, you hit just a little bit of dip, suspension goes down, and it is possible to lever a tire off the ground. But I also think it's important to find your bike's lean limits. Just do it under controlled conditions. Go to a parking lot, start turning circles, get it to where you could comfortably ride a complete circle, scraping the floorboards or the kickstand on the left side. And that way, if it happens out on the street as you're coming around a curve, you won't panic and straighten up the bike. If you do that, that's the most common motorcycle crash. It involves just the rider. Failure to negotiate a curve. You get into the curve, the bike is leaning over. You think you're leaning too much, you might hear the floorboard scrape, you straighten up, and you're going to run right off the curb. So it's much better to find your bike's lean limits at low speeds under controlled conditions. Now notice the handlebars on this motorcycle. They are what's called the police bars. They are standard equipment on the Road King. Both the police model and the civilian version. And a big benefit of these bars is you might even call them mini Aves, because you've got a lot of pullback. So if you're a shorter rider, you loosen 2 bolts under here and you could pull these bars back a bit. I've got them back as far as they'll go before hitting the tank at full lock. And that gives me the most amount of leverage. If you're a tall person, just push them forward. Same thing. I believe it's about the best compromise of any of the Harley-Davidson bikes for as far as fitting the bike to the rider. Road Kings used to come with lower bars which had even taller riders bending over slightly, and boy, when you're bending over for any length of time, yeah, it starts hurting your back. So a lot of people switched to these bars. That was usually the first thing people did when they bought a Road King, was got the police bars, and you didn't have to change the cables or anything, but it made a big difference in comfort. So I believe in 2018 they started putting the police bars as standard equipment on all the civilian Road Kings as well. This, of course, is the 6-speed transmission. I find with this bike, on a straight flat road, it's got enough torque to where you could put it in 6th gear at about a little over 50 miles an hour. Plenty of power. Especially compared to the older Harleys, you know, the 2005, 2006. They weren't bad, but this is really good. You got plenty of power. And I know guys like to put stage 2 and 3 and all that. I think that the more stuff you add to the motor, first of all, for sure, the more heat, you get more horsepower, you're going to get more heat. And that's the last thing you need in the summertime, especially if you're stuck in traffic. So I always leave my bike stock. Of course, you can do whatever you want. If you want a really fast motorcycle, yeah, you might want to look at a Sport Tourer or something like that. And yeah, I know the new Indian Challenger has got 122 horsepower. I never felt the need to have really more than what comes standard with these bikes. And I have in the past, over the years, made some mistakes screwing around with the motor, having different things put on it for a little bit more power. Not that I needed it, but I just did it. And it always caused more problems than it was worth. But the Road King, to me, is the perfect Harley-Davidson in that handling is beautiful, the ride is really good. It's just a very smooth motor, but it's got the character of a Harley-Davidson. And that's a hard thing to actually put into words or to explain, but it does have that without the vibration, so that's a good thing. It still sounds like a Harley-Davidson, or like a Harley-Davidson should. And of course, the classic style of this bike. I think I did another video where I put up a photo of a 66 or 67 FLH, what they used to call them before it was called the Road King. And you could see they are very similar, but the only similarity really to the older bikes is the style, the classic American style of this Harley-Davidson. I love that look, and if you do too, well, right now I guess it's a buyer's market for sure. These retail for $19,500, and I guess you got to pay freight. That's another $435. I think you get a lot for your money. Of course, by the way, if you didn't know, the windshield just pops right off, so if you like to ride without a windshield, this comes off in seconds. I also have a tour pack for this bike. I got the quick release gear. I pop it on whenever I need it. In fact, whenever my wife rides this bike, I gotta put the tour pack on because she carries a lot of stuff. But this bike handles beautifully. Yeah, it's not a sport bike, but for a heavyweight cruiser, I'd match this against any other heavyweight cruiser. Now, if you're on a racetrack and you're going 100, 110 miles an hour around the curves, there might be a difference between some heavyweight cruisers handling and this bike. But I seriously doubt that you'll find those limits or handling differences on the street. I mean, you could, I guess, but chances are you do that, you're going to get arrested or killed. But that's not what a cruiser is about. It is about comfortable highway cruising, having fun on a winding road. Yeah, you could definitely do that on this bike. We don't have a lot of those here in Florida, but we got enough. And since I got this camera facing me, a lot of people are always asking what equipment that I use. This is a GoPro Hero 7, and the camera you're seeing me on is a SJ cam. The Hero 7 is about 400 bucks. The SJ cam, I think I paid $110 for it. I can't see any difference as far as picture quality. The reason I got the Hero is because you could get in addition to the $400 price, you pay another 50 bucks and you get a mic adapter. The mic I'm using is called the Purple Panda. I had seen it reviewed on YouTube, and it seems to work really good. That's one of the benefits of the GoPro cameras. One of the things about the GoPro is it's not very reliable. In fact, as I started this ride, I went to put the camera on, it would not turn on. That meant I had to stop, take the camera out of its case, take the battery out, wait 10 seconds, put the battery back in, and then the camera worked like magic. At times, it won't turn off. Same thing, got to take the battery out. That's never happened on the $100 camera, but it happens quite often on the GoPro camera. GoPro, if you're watching this or listening, yeah, your quality control leaves a lot to be desired. And I also want to mention I'm wearing the Built 2.0 full face helmet. As I stated, this helmet is very noisy as far as wind noise getting in, and even when I taped up all the vents and fogged up the face shield, it was still noisy. It made no difference. And I had to buy 2 sizes bigger than I would normally wear. The reason I got it, and I got one for my wife as well, and by the way, she usually wears a small, I had to get her a large just to make it fit properly. So if you're going to buy one of these for, I think it was 230 bucks, somewhere right around there. If you're going to get one of these, I wouldn't get it till you tried it on. Go to a shop, try on the helmet. In fact, you'll find the online prices the same as you're going to find in a shop. If I had it to do over again, what I would do is just get the Cena system, which I think is about 150 bucks, and I would stick it on my $90 HJC helmet, which fit me properly in a medium size and is much quieter than this $230 helmet. But you live and you learn, so don't make the same mistake as me. Don't waste your money. Now there's another helmet, a Cena helmet that you could buy, and I think they start at $450. I haven't tried one of those, but I don't know how quiet or how noisy that's going to be. The Cena system works very well. The speakers are fine. You're not going to get any bass response out of them, but it is just fine. Getting back to the motorcycle, I love the Road King. Like I said, if I lived up north, probably I would get a fairing so that I could ride, you know, even when it was really cold outside. That would block a lot more wind, though the windshield does do a fine job of blocking the wind. And with the Baker-built wings that I put on here, it keeps that wind coming up from underneath and stops any helmet buffeting that there is without them. So if you're looking for a beautiful cruiser with a classic American style, it's got all kinds of power, handles great, extremely nimble at low speeds, you can't go wrong with the Road King. Next time, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to subscribe, give me a thumbs up, and I'll probably talk to you later on during the week.